This is the second video of lecture 6 on file operation in Python. I will go over the role of RAM, hard disk, and file types from lecture 1, and I explain why we need files. We learned in lecture 1 that programs and files are stored on hard disk or solid state disk, and when you double click on them or tap them on a program on your smartphone, they are moved to the RAM, and then CPU takes the instructions from the RAM and executes them. We learned that we use hard disk because even if there is a blackout or when power is off, the information are stored. However, in the case of RAM, if the power is removed, then data will be lost. We learned that to see the running programs on a computer, you need to press Control Alt Delete and then choose Task Manager, and then you see, the Task Manager there, and you will see all the programs that are being executed at this moment on, various CPUs. We also learned that we can have access to the hard disk via My Computer or File Explorer. We learned that the hard disk usually has one-to-many drives called CDE. Almost all of you have this drive C on your computer. Each drive can have zero to many folders. Each folder can have several other folders, and a file is either inside a drive or inside a folder or a folder of folders. We also learned that a file has a name and an extension, and a file or folder has a path, as you can see here at the top of the picture. In lecture 1, we learned that we have two types of files: executable files, like the Python file that we have, the file that contains instructions for the CPU, and the second type of file is data files, which include data used by the executable files. In this lecture, we usually use the extension of txt, which means the data file can also be opened using Notepad. But why do we need files? In the previous class, we learned about a program that calculates the sum of two fractions. You see that program here. We just learned that the program is executed if it's moved to the RAM. So assume that this program is in the RAM now. We use keyboards to provide input to these programs, and the output is shown on the screen. However, if power outage occurs in between running these programs, we are going to lose all these data that are given and calculated. So data loss is a huge issue, and that happens because RAM cannot store data for good. So we need to store the input data and output data on a hard disk so that we are sure that we can always have access to them. So the 3 and 4, 1, 8, and the result can be stored in a file on a hard disk. Note that this file requires a name and an extension, and it should be stored, either in a drive or a folder, in a drive. So a file has a path. So a full file name is a combination of a directory path of the file and the file name plus its extension. So having the file helps us in a way that now I can write the outcome, the fraction that is the result of 3 over 4 plus 1 over 8 inside the file rather than printing it and showing it to the user. Or I can do both. I can also write it in the file and also I can print it and show it to the user. We can also read the fractions from a file instead of getting input from the keyboard. So we learned the role of hard disks, RAM, and various file types in an operating system. Now it's time to learn about three methods of strip, split, and append, which are required for file operations in Python.